Welcome, friends, to the Soul Talk podcast, a show where we explore and uncover the path to the heart, amplifying your conscience. Join me as we meet incredible souls who are in this journey and learn from their experience and different methods that will make you vibrate your heart. Let's get into it. Hello, everyone. This is Monica Ramirez, the Warrior of Love, and thank you for being in Soul Talk. Today, we have a very special friend. Her name is Abigail Teixeira. Abby, it is a trauma recovery coach, speaker, writer, and mother of four, devoted restoring community-based healing, ancestral remembrance, and embodied leadership. A survivor of childhood abuse and addiction. Abby waves over a decade of lived experience with a woman-centered coaching, nervous system awareness, and ceremonial facilitation. She is rooted in the indigenous Maya lineage and reclamation her journey. She creates a space where the grief and rage and truth are welcome. And I really love that we embrace who we are, our roots. And it is so important, Abby, and I am so, so proud of you. Everything that we have known each other for a while in person.
Mhm.
And I love how what you've been doing for your community and for the world and for everything. It's like I love it. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And it's such an honor to be here with you. And you are somebody that is very special to me as well, because you were part of my initial awakening a few years ago when pretty much everything changed for me when we met in Miami. And we were there both as speakers for an event. And my life looks so different now, from that time. And you have definitely played a significant role in yeah, like I said, my awakening, my remembrance, and it's such a gift to be here to be able to chat with you a little bit today.
Well, but you have something now special that you're running, and that's what I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I'm so I've really just been really diving deep into community. Um, I am a community builder, and I just there's just something about healing in community that is just so different from the society that we live in that is very individualistic, right? Where your healing is kind of your own. You're really taught to, kind of find a therapist and you kind of deal with it in that way. And yes, like I have a therapist, I have lots of different tools that I picked up in my 11 years of healing and recovery, but nothing has quite um really touched the layers of trauma and of shame of all of the things that I had been carrying, quite like being witnessed in community. And this kind of started for me probably like the first few years of I always talk about this kind of pivotal moment for me early on in my recovery journey. I was a part of a group therapy uh like container, if you will. And it was I think there was like six of us. It was very small, very intimate, and we were all survivors of childhood abuse. And so we were all adult survivors of childhood abuse, and there was a quite a lengthy process to kind of get into the space. And because obviously the nature of what we were going to be discussing, and but once I was in that circle, I will never forget what it felt like to start hearing people. And it wasn't like we were trauma dumping or anything like that. Like we just kind of we started speaking about how our trauma had affected us, right? In our teenage years, in our adult years, and many of us were there, coming from jail, coming from sober houses, coming from rehab, like just all of us had quite significant situations in our life because of the things that had happened to us. And there was just this, like the way I describe it is like I went into that room with this cloak that I had been wearing all of my life that was soaked in shame, heavy with silence and secrecy. Because, as you know, in our culture, when we're growing up and trauma is happening in our families, we don't talk about it. we don't talk about it, we don't acknowledge it, any of that stuff. And so, like for me, I just really absorbed it all, and I made it mean that there was something wrong with me, and that maybe I was just the only one that, was dealing with these kind of things. I thought it was literally the only one. And so get into this group, and it was incredible. It was so incredible to finally remove the cloak that I had been carrying, that I didn't realize how heavy it was, and to start to be able to name the harms that had been done, name the consequences of these actions and all of that kind of stuff. And so that planted a seed for me, as to what the power of community really was. And so, a couple of years ago, I started to really notice, especially as a woman of color, I started to notice that, I was heavily in personal development. I've been in a lot of big high ticket containers, a lot of circles, all of that kind of stuff. And I started to notice that, first of all, I was always the minority. There wasn't very many women of color in these circles, right? And in these
Symmetry.
containers, right? And I started to notice that, like, the way we were operating as women, because a lot of these containers were women only, right? And so I started to notice how, a lot of us were struggling with burnout. A lot of us were struggling with, just always being on, always having to, like, the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And 2024 for me was one of these years where I never experienced as much burnout as I did. And I'll mention, I have four kids, right? They're 7 and under. So I was a mother with four young kids. I'm on my healing and recovery journey. I'm building my coaching business. I'm still taking trainings, and I'm still healing, right? And I experienced burnout after burnout after burnout, to the point where in August of 2024, I ended up in the hospital because of something I had ignored, because I was just so on in this masculine push energy, where it's like deadlines, like I have to get this done, I need to do this, all of that kind of stuff. And this forced me to really set aside some time and really look at my life. And I was like, how did I get here? Why did this happen to me? And I'm a I'm a lifelong learner. I always want to learn about, my lessons and mistakes and all of that kind of stuff. And I started to notice that there was just, like, the way we were being taught to build, to be, was so out of alignment with the female body, and in that time, in my healing and recovery journey, I've also started to really lean into learning about feminine cycles, learning about cycles, cyclical living, also reconnecting with my ancestry, my indigeneity, all of that kind of stuff. And one thing that I started to really notice as I leaned into, kind of my roots and all of that kind of stuff, and what my ancestors, what their practices were, their rituals, I started to notice that they lived very cyclical, right? Like when it was winter, and that was a time of rest, of restoring, of replenishment. Very similar to our feminine cycles, right? Where our moon cycles, our menstruation period is our period of rest. It's our inner winter. That's when we're supposed to, like, not do anything, like literally be taking care of ourselves. And then our summer, which is our ovulatory time, that's when we have, like, creative energy, and there's flow, and, like, we have lots of excitement and all of that kind of stuff. And I was like, this is so not how I've been operating, so no wonder I have led into this, like, burnout cycle. Yeah, go
And
ahead.
and not only that, something that I observe in that area, because my ancestry is the
Mhm,
same.
mhm,
I come from also from Mexica too,
mhm.
and it is also the stages of women. It is
Yes.
very different. I have a teenager of 18 years old, a daughter that is still a maiden,
Hmm.
still how she observed life and what she expects from life that is normal in her proper age. It is
Hmm.
going to be very different from the elder.
Yeah.
That for many of our tribes we call them grandmothers or
Yes.
abuelas.
Yeah, abuelas,
That
yeah.
I became that. So I noticed that how I observed life, it was very different than my friends that they were in their 40s, that they were still procreating.
Yeah.
Why? Because we're not in the procreation anymore. We're out of
Exactly.
that game.
Hmm.
But our ancestors, at least the Mexicas, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. When I'm talking about Mexicas, I'm talking about all the tribes
Yeah.
from North America to South
Yeah.
America.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it is very, very different.
Yeah.
in the way how we observe and see things, that
Hmm.
those things are not too much into other cultures,
Hmm.
except into our cultures, is again in the cycles.
Yes,
So,
exactly.
and you're so right in the way how we heal the Mexicas
Hmm.
tribes,
Hmm.
and from the European tribes, they very different at the
Completely
same
different.
time.
Hmm. Hmm.
You're so right on that.
Yeah, and like I mean, I could like I won't get too into it because I could go on for hours, but like when the Europeans came and colonized, our ancestors, they came from a very individualistic mindset, right? It's like they weren't community oriented. They didn't honor cycles. They didn't honor eldership, all of that kind of stuff. In fact, the elders were the ones who were kind of the lost in the societies, right? Like they were kind of the burdens and all of that kind of stuff. Whereas it was very different for our indigenous ancestors, where the elders were actually revered. They were the ones who like everyone cared for them, and they were valued for their life experience and what they had moved through, and their gifts and all of that kind of stuff. Just very different mindset. And unfortunately, we adopted a lot of that because of the colonization. We adopted a lot of that mindset.
Yes, and it has to do also with Inquisition, because if we're talking about also from the Europeans, they
Hmm.
were also the Wiccas. The
Hmm.
Wiccas, they honor actually the same things, the cycles and the changes at the same time.
Hmm.
But because they were burned in the stake, many of them with Inquisition,
Hmm.
the ones that they were, they hide it.
Exactly.
And even if the Inquisition was in this continent, it
Hmm.
was very, very, very different. I'm sorry, I love history.
Yeah, I know, me too. Trust me. That's why I said like we'll have to get together and go and talk about this specifically because it is such a topic I get so
Mhm.
heated about because it's like, like once you start learning and understanding, it truly is a remembrance. I'm just it feels like, oh yeah, like like I feel it in my body and my nervous system. And so, so like I started having these realizations around me, about like certain things not really making sense to me, the way we were operating, so many women struggling with burnout, feeling alone in their journeys, thinking there's something wrong with them because they can't keep up, and these are women who are mothers, grandmothers, business owners. They're also on their healing and recovery journey. Some of them are CEOs, like there are lots of demands, right? And we are taught that you kind of have to like this is just the way it is, right? Like it's you have to keep up or else you're just going to be left behind and all of that kind of stuff, right? And what we don't take into consideration is our nervous system, right? And especially as survivors, we are like, I know for me, I am programmed to be operating on fight or flight all the time, right? This constant urgency, all of that kind of stuff, right? And so, and I would hear, so I started to hear, like, listen to like what a lot of these women were saying. And it's just like, I just need better time management. I just need more discipline. Maybe I just need to regulate my nervous system better. Like, these were the things that I was even saying those kind of things, right? But really what I started to discover was that it wasn't about regulation, it was about living against our natural rhythms. And that was a really big thing. And so when I started to do the work myself, started to learn about cycles, cyclical living, started to and it changed everything, including my moon cycle, everything like that. Like I used to have the most painful times of the month and all of that kind of stuff. And when I started to heal and do womb work and all of that kind of stuff, everything changed for me, and especially after having four back-to-back babies, there was a lot of changes in my body, hormones, all of that kind of stuff, right? And so, so I started to notice these things, and things started to significantly improve for me personally. And I felt like I had this like gift, where I was like, oh my goodness, this has been so helpful for me. I want to be able to like share this with others that you don't have to live this way, like let's come back to, first of all, our connection with the land, our connection with the cycles, our connection with ourselves, and our connection with each other. And so last year in 2025 was my year of boundaries of like, really practicing saying no and honoring my no and giving myself space, like spaciousness to be able to sometimes not do anything. And I that was very hard for me. Very hard for me as somebody who is constantly on the go. I have all these things going on, but I really wanted to practice what I was preaching. And so I started like doing these things, like, taking rest weeks sometimes, listening to my body when it was feeling, tired and all of that kind of stuff. I'm not shaming myself over it. I was just like, no, like I'm gonna listen to my body. And so last year I launched Reclaim and Rise. And so these were monthly community gatherings. They were free gatherings, and they were catered to for Black, Indigenous women of color and allies. But yeah, and so I started launching this series, and each gathering we had like a topic. So there was grief, there was visibility, there was money, and when we would come together, it was like magic happened. Like being able to facilitate these community gatherings and talk about these very real things like grief that all of us struggle with. And once again, we're in this society where grief has a timeline, like I always give the example, like when you have a loved one that passes away, your work will give you 2 or 3 days of bereavement leave, right? And depending on how close they are to you, right? So you might only get 1 day or like 3 days, and you're expected to come back to work and kind of be over it. Right. But grief doesn't work like that. Like grief actually is cyclical also, and it comes in waves. And actually, what I've learned is that it never goes away. Like grief literally leaves a void, because where there is grief, there was great loss, right? So we grieve because we lost something that we loved, right? Whether it's a relationship, whether it's a loved one, whether it's a job, whether it's an identity, there's something that was there before that's no longer there that we need to learn to grieve, right? And not shame each other over like, you should be over that already. Like, why is this still bothering you? Like all of these things that we hear, right? And these were the things that I started hearing in these circles, these women feeling so much deep shame that they should just be over these things already. Like, why can't they? What's wrong with them? Like, why does this still make me cry? Why does this still hurt me? All of that kind of stuff, right? And so I started really listening to all these things. Go
I
ahead.
have seen that also happen a lot with women that after the menopause.
Hmm.
There is a grief for the person that you were and you're not anymore, and you would
Yeah.
not be anymore.
Hmm.
So, and that it is a shameful because we still compete women with women that are in their 20s. And that's ridiculous
Yeah,
competing with them. They are not us, and they're not, we're in a very set different minds where our
exactly.
body have changed. And there's a lot of grief in there that is not acknowledged.
Exactly. And when we don't acknowledge it, it turns into shame. Like shame thrives in secrecy. When we don't talk about it, when we just carry it ourselves, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it cripples you. Like it literally, and I know this from my own lived experience as somebody who carried so much shame around all the things that had happened to me because I never talked about it. And, I just kept it inside. And so, yeah, so these were the types of conversations that we were having in these circles.
Mhm.
And so I did a like 3-part series last year, very well received. Lots of women came. We built a beautiful community. I nurtured that community. I would always get the most amazing messages afterwards, just from how everyone just felt seen, seen, heard, understood. And they were loving learning about, some of the things that I had been learning through and actually living through, which is like I said, honoring when winter is winter, right? Allowing things to die instead of forcing things to grow when it's not the time for it to grow, right? Not expecting yourself to bloom 365 days a year. That's just not the way nature is, right? And like letting your creative and emotional energy ebb and flow. It doesn't always have to be on. Sometimes you don't have creativity. And so it's okay. It's time to rest, to lean in, all of that kind of stuff, right? Living through moons, not metrics, and seasons, and not like quarters. It's like, oh, Q1 quarters coming up, like we got to like have this done and all this, and like when we're in the middle of like dead of winter, when it's like literally time for us to rest and all that kind of stuff. And so I followed my own advice, and last year around September I started to kind of slow down which I've never done before, and started to slow down and was very, very intentional with my commitments, my time, my energy. I was going to do a launch in October, and as I got closer to it, my intuition was telling me, no, right now you need to rest. Like you need to integrate everything that you move through this year, and so I postponed it. And then once winter came, I really went into that deep inner winter and hibernation mode, and really starting to lean into rest and replenishment and all of that kind of stuff. And it gave me so much, actually creativity just started to flow because of that, because I took the time to pause. I took the time to pause, like reflect, to integrate all the things that I moved through. And so in December, right around winter solstice, I always love doing like a little mini ceremony with myself, like an end of year ceremony, just kind of looking at the year that was, thinking about the things I want to celebrate myself for, maybe the things that I want to acknowledge were really difficult for me, all of that kind of stuff. And so right around winter solstice, I was going to do a session with myself, and I sat down and I was starting to plan all the things that I was going to do. And I got this like intuitive nudge, like this like inkling, and it was like you should invite some of your community to do this with you. And I kind of didn't want to, because I was like still I was full rest mode, right? And I kind of didn't want to, but I was like, okay, I'm gonna listen to my intuition. So very last minute, on a Monday, I put it out to my community. I'm like, I'm gonna have this winter solstice kind of end of year release ceremony, and I would love for you all to come if you're feeling heavy, weighed down, like you want to like just kind of shed. And also we're in the year of the snake, until I think tomorrow, like this week actually is like the ending
Yes,
of that. And
17.
yeah, and so I wanted to incorporate some of that, like the shedding and all of that kind of stuff. And so these women came, and so the it was on a Friday, and this time I started to incorporate some ceremonial aspects to it, because the Reclaim and Rise was strictly just facilitating conversation, right? And so here it was facilitated conversation, but then I also started to incorporate some like fire ceremony kind of thing, and because I forgot to also mention that I'm on a medicine woman path for the last couple of years, and really learning about that. And I love it so much. And, just once again, remembrance and all the beautiful rituals and ceremonies that, once again, our ancestors used for grief release, right? For letting go, for rage, anger, all of that kind of stuff. And fire for me is something that I've always had an affinity for fire. And so I love the fire. Anything with fire, I just really love it. And so, as you know, fire is a powerful transmuter of all
Yeah.
things. All things, pain, sadness, all the things, right? And so yeah, so I had this session with these women. It was amazing. And then from there, this Sovereign Seasons was born, was birthed. So there, the seed was planted. I really sat with it. I really saw that, the community was really loving this. They wanted this. And I loved it too, right? And so yeah, so just last week, so yeah, last week, like very, very fresh, I've launched a year-long ceremonial journey with me, where we are going to cycle through the seasons. And so, for example, our first session is coming up here this coming weekend, February 22nd. And the theme of it is, the completion and shedding of, final shedding of the year of the snake, invoking the year of the fire horse. And then by popular demand, we're going to do a mini rage release ceremony, because a lot of women carry a lot of anger. And once again, it's one of those things that we are taught not to do. Like it's like once again you're shamed, like you shouldn't be angry. You shouldn't, like, and it's like, and anger is such a healthy, such a powerful emotion that we really don't need to be dimming down, numbing, all of that kind of stuff, right? We need to witness it, and we need to be able to release it, and somatically, spiritually, all of that kind of stuff, right? And so yeah, so I've launched this beautiful series with me for this year, and I'm so excited, because not only am I doing this, myself, but I'm also bringing the community to do it as well, right? And a lot of the women that have already joined me, it's just it's really amazing to hear what everybody is moving through. And there's this sense of readiness, where they're just ready to let it go, ready to let it go, ready to face these things. And that's the other thing that I can, go on and on about is like, as you know, in the trauma spaces, we hear a lot about nervous system regulation, right? We hear about, it's nervous system this and regulate that and regulate this. And, the world that we're living in right now is not regulated. We are bombarded when we open our phones, when we look at the news, when we go outside, there's so much stuff happening. And people are really at a loss. Like what I'm hearing and seeing is people don't know what to do because like they have all these, they might even have certifications, they might have all these things on like regulating, and no amount of regulation is calming them from like like dealing with these things, right? And so my theory is that like enough with the regulation. We need to learn how to hold, these big emotions, these feelings, and move through them, right? And like as you know, like they say, like the only way through is through, right? So we have to go through them, not like put them aside, not numb them, not like ignore them, all of that kind of stuff, right? And so we need tools. Um, we don't need any more tools, regulating tools. And of course there's a time and place for them. I use breath work, I use ice baths, polyvagal charts, nervous system hacks, all of that kind of stuff, right? But truly what has helped me is being witnessed in my grief, having rage and being heard without being labeled too much, not being rushed to calm down, not being told, oh, well, at least, dot, 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 all the things that people say. And really, that's where relief comes from naming what's true, and saying it out loud, and then having someone say, of course you feel this way. It's so normal. Like, of course you're human, right?
And the thing is, the women, we got lost in the system for a long, long time. We tried to become men,
Yes.
emotional and the strong one, and and more the single mothers. They were trying to, but we're never gonna be men. And the men never gonna be women in that way. In the emotional part, energetically wise, we are not gonna be one or the other. And the
Mhm,
way how they do the groups of men, it is very different than the groups of women. So
mhm,
that's why this is also part of the magic that you're doing in there.
mhm, mhm.
Because finally the women are being seen and they're being heard and are being actually clear from
Mhm,
all this masculinity that it is being ingrained in the system.
mhm, mhm.
That's even before we were born that starts happening.
Yeah.
And or trying to be people pleasers at the same time. So like let's please the masculinity.
Mhm.
So we forgot about us. Who was gonna please us? And
Exactly.
I have heard also men saying that they have these groups of men and where they talk and they can express all the emotions that they need healing at the same time. But we cannot do it together.
Mhm,
It
mhm,
has to be separate.
mhm,
So like
mhm,
that we can heal. So it is amazing what you're doing because it is very, very important.
mhm, mhm.
And something that brought me about to these points, it was the rage. In the rage, it is fine if a soldier have it in the army, over there. But the thing is, everybody have felt rage at any point in their lives.
Yeah.
And yes, you're right. It's programmed that a good woman knows how to hold it and hide it. And in reality, that's the part where it gets us stuck. Because we're
Exactly.
holding it and hiding it inside of us, but that doesn't mean that it's not boiling inside of us.
Mhm.
And through rage, we might not destroy the opponent or the person that we're feeling the rage, but we're destroying ourselves.
Yes.
It is
Exactly.
eating us like a cancer, even without being cancer, but it's destroying us inside.
Mhm.
So it is important to have these circles of women,
Yeah.
the ones that they feel that energy, feminine inside of them, that they need to heal that part. That doesn't mean that the males do not have the feminine energy or the we don't have the masculine energy. They
Mhm.
are very important in both of us, that both energies. But
Yeah.
it is wonderful what you're doing with this returning to the cycle living.
Mhm.
I love it.
Thank you. Yeah, rage is sacred. It's a sacred emotion, it's a sacred feeling, and it's information that our body is intelligently telling us that there's something, whether it's injustice, you know, like, and there's so much that so much injustice we're seeing. Of course, we're gonna have rage, you know, and especially when you start to learn about our histories and like colonization, all of that kind of stuff. Like you're seeing, once you see it, you can't unsee it. And I feel a lot of rage almost every day, you know, and it really, it protects us, it protects boundaries, and it signals injustice. And it's also, rage is a life force energy, right? Like not to be suppressed, because when we suppress it, it becomes anxiety, it becomes depression, it becomes numbness, self-abandonment, you
Or
know.
it can come at a division in a country, like we're
Yes.
seeing it right now. I have heard many times, like, oh, you're not brown enough to be Mexican. And you're like, it's like, it's not my fault that my ancestors were raped.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Oh my gosh. And that, and like sometimes that's even from our own cultures, you know, and
Yes.
that's the thing of colonization, you know, where the colonizer turned us against each other, you know, and made this unrealistic standard of what is enough, you know, like light skin, light eyes, you know, and I know you can relate, like even for me, reconnecting with my indigeneity, it's very controversial because like we grow up, you know, my parents are from El Salvador, and you know, like in a lot of Central American countries, you know, even in Mexico, the lighter skin you have, the lighter eyes you have, the lighter hair you have, the more beautiful you are, right? You don't want to be Indio or India, you know, like you don't want to
That's
have
a
the dark.
that's a
Yeah,
despective name to put it down.
exactly,
But in
exactly.
reality, even if you do your DNA test that I did,
Yeah,
actually you discover like, oh, I have more indigenous in me than actually European.
exactly.
But when I came over here a long time ago to, I'm not gonna say the place,
Yeah.
tell me you're not brown enough to be Mexican, so they reject me. And it's like, where did even that come from? It's like all my being, the way I behave, etc. It is Mexica.
Yes.
So it's like you're saying that I don't have the right color.
Hmm.
Like it is not of the fault, and that's where it comes out of the rage and the division,
Exactly.
inside and outside.
And that you said it, division. And it takes 2 seconds to open up any sort of social media app to see witness division in action, you know, and everyone, you know, fighting against each other, and it's left and right, and it's this and that, or and or all of it, you know, and the collective is carrying so much right now. You know, and as women and femmes, we really are never given permission to feel it safely, right? To
Yeah.
feel rage safely, because as we know, right now it's very dangerous, you know, you know, in the USA. Like I'm in Canada, and we're seeing what's happening in USA with our brothers and sisters and our kin, you know, and the sacred rage that they are feeling, and they're and immediately you can get killed, you know, for expressing that rage, right?
Yeah.
Like it's terrifying. And so when others are seeing what the consequences are of expressing that rage, it further makes them want to hide it, right? And makes them want to just suppress it, bring it down. And like I said, rage isn't the enemy, you know, disconnected rage is, right? And suppressed rage is, you know, that's what happens when you suppress and suppress and suppress. Eventually, you're going to burst, and oftentimes it's not going to be in a healthy way. It's not going to be healthy. And that is where my mission starts coming in, where it's like, if I can learn, you know, because I have to practice what I preach first. And so, like, me learning to express my own rage, which is so different for me. I'm a crier. I love to cry. Tears are sacred for me. But when it comes to expressing my anger, big block there, you know? And so I've had to really lean in into like those shadow aspects, right? And really lean into the rage and learn to hold it and to release it in a safe, you know, manner. And that's where, like I said, the ancestral practices, the rituals come in, you know, all of that kind of stuff to help support that process, and it feels incredible after. And to be honest, something that I noticed, like just even with myself, I don't know if you'd agree, but behind rage for me often is hurt. Right.
Oh,
And so, you know,
yes.
when it comes, like
Yeah.
one of the practices that I do is I read a letter about what I'm rageful about. And I usually will come into this session with myself, and it's like I'm so angry at this person, or I'm so angry at this that's happening, and I'm like radiating, like, right, you know, and I sit down and I start writing, and the tears just start falling, you know, because really behind the rage is deep grief
Pain.
and sadness,
Yeah.
pain. pain, exactly, and then I'm able to, release it and use, like I said, the modalities that I'm learning and all of that kind of stuff. And it's been incredible, and it's just a different way of healing, and um it feels so natural, it feels beautiful, like it just feels healthy, and to be able to do that for others is truly a gift, truly a
And,
gift.
and it's feeling compassion at the same time for others and for ourselves.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
Hmm.
because it's something that it brought my attention yesterday that I was having a conversation with a healer. She was mentioning overcoming the mother and overcoming the daughter so we can move forward. And
Hmm.
and those words got really stuck on me because we all have different traumas.
Yeah.
Because they defend us, or because they don't defend us, or because they were choking us, or because they were not choking, whatever.
Hmm.
And the thing is overcoming the mother to become the maiden. It is so important because or else we're always gonna be the child. It doesn't matter you're 80 or you're 70 or whatever age you are.
Hmm.
And that comes with a lot of emotion like rage.
Hmm. Hmm. Absolutely. And like the practices that and again, like I've benefited from many of these modern models of healing, right? Like but it's very much the norm that healing is very private, therapy is one-on-one,
Yeah.
self-help, self-improvement, those are multi-billion-dollar industries. That trauma is something to fix alone. You do that yourself, you go on that journey yourself, you fix it yourself, right? And I did that for a long time. That was my journey where it was like this was my deal. I'm doing this, all of that kind of stuff. And then what I started to learn, as I started to dig deep and reconnect and all of that kind of stuff, our ancestors did it so different. They grieved in circle. They wailed together, they held funerals together, they sang, they danced, they kept vigil as a community, and it was honored and it was respected. Healing was communal, it was relational, and it was rhythmic, and it also integrated into life. And I
That is,
love that. Hmm.
hi everyone, this is Monica Ramirez, the Warrior of Love. And if you have been feeling stuck where you are right now, or if you have felt that you cannot connect with others in the same language or the same emotions that you're feeling, if you're a coach, a healer, energy worker in any of those branches, maybe this is for you because we have felt the disconnection for the rest of our family, friends, that we cannot connect to them. And we're so afraid to actually go deep dive when we're getting triggered by our own clients because we're seeing our mirror image with them. My name is Monica Ramirez, the Warrior of Love, and that's my spiritual name. And I take clients from feeling confused and feeling stuck to feeling free, to feeling that they feel empowered from themselves. I created a system, Path to the Heart, that goes in 3 levels. And the first level, it is healing the inner child, healing the parts of us that we've been so afraid or it's very painful to do it. I have done it myself, not only with me, and I have done it with many, many of my clients that I take them to this process. The second level, it is to go more into inner self, clearing the family lineage, to breaking the contracts and vows, learning deeper more about the laws of the universe. And the third level, it is learning how to channel, how to do waking up your and getting online your gifts, your unique gifts that the world so much needs right now. So, if you wanted to know more about this, I am eager to show you and to teach you all what I know that I use every day in my life. So, thank you for being here in this page. I really appreciate it. And this is Monica Ramirez, the Warrior of Love. Yes, that is so true because in how I see more the advances of people transforming in my classes of shadow work it is the group.
Yeah.
Because yes, I have coaching, of course, one-on-one and so forth,
Same.
but they don't advance as much as when they do it in group. Why? Because you're hearing something that it might be very relatable to you, that
Hmm.
is going to trigger that emotion. So it is
Hmm.
going to help you what the other one is saying.
Yeah.
And it is the old saying, a program that we had, it is the dirty clothes you wash it in house. But that is what it got us stuck and separated at the same time.
Hmm. Hmm. The saying of you don't air your dirty laundry, right? Like you don't put that outside, for everyone to see, you
But
know?
that's the one that created the division.
Yeah.
What I'm feeling, you're not feeling it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Probably they are feeling it the same way in
Hmm.
in their own ways, in their own examples. But it is the same, the rage or the pain or whatever they're healing. It is it is the same.
Yeah. Yeah,
So it
absolutely.
is important to do it in groups. And you're right. Our
Mm-hmm.
ancestors used to do it in groups. Well, they still do it in
Yeah.
groups.
Yeah, yeah, because we're still here. It's not like we're not in the past tense. We're still here.
Yes,
You and I are still here. We are a
we are.
future ancestor. And we do have our indigenous tribes that, there's a tiny little population left of them, but they're still here, right? And they're still thriving in community and doing things, as a village and all of that kind of stuff, right? But as we know, capitalism thrives on isolation, right? They individualize, they convince us that we should be able to just handle it ourselves, right? But our nervous system, what I've learned and I've seen and experienced myself is that our nervous system regulates in connection. You know,
Yes.
um, we I had a talk. I did a talk on Wednesday night this past week at an event. It was an in-person event, and oh my goodness. It'd been a while since I'd been at an in-person event, a talk event, and it was so powerful. Like, person after person, up there sharing their stories of overcoming their very vulnerable stories of some of the most painful things that they have experienced and moved through. And it was a packed house. There were so many of us in this venue. And I was talking to my husband about this last night, actually, and I was telling him how isn't it so magical and so powerful when you are in a group of people and you are hearing somebody else share something really deep and powerful and you resonate with it, that you have
Mhm.
that resonance where you're like, oh my goodness, like that person just put words or named an experience that I know so well. You feel it. It's like this like collective like wave of energy where like some of us like lean in, like some of us like lean back, like you just see it, right? And it's just like wow, like it's so that is the magic of being in community in groups, together. You wouldn't have that kind of feeling if you were just by yourself. Like and even sometimes when I'm like watching a video or something like that, they're just, um, like it's just, it's, there's nothing more powerful and more, truly magical than really being, in community and feeling each other's energy and having that resonance, and that lived experience being named for you, maybe sometimes for the first time, right? So, yeah, we're wired for co-regulation, not self-isolation. And that's something that I have definitely learned in my own journey.
So I'm gonna be posting underneath of this video, guys, the her information in case you wanted to get together and if you want to be seen and heard,
Hmm.
because that's where the magic starts. And sometimes we just need that. That's
Hmm.
all we need to be seen and heard. So
Exactly.
the information of Abby is gonna be down below this video, and if you're listening, it is gonna be down below too. So it is important that we do that healing because, or else we just, even the epigenetics would tell you, we
Hmm.
transmit this to our kids. And you don't
Hmm.
want to, we want to create a new world. Us. To create a new world, we need to heal ourselves first. So we
Yeah.
don't pass it on to the future generations
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
get it more dirty.
Absolutely,
Well,
absolutely. And as you know, like I said, I am a mother of four children, and I come from a long lineage of a lot of violence, trauma, poverty, war, addiction, and like all the way until it got to me. Once it got to me, like, and I said, and I'm not passing this down to my kids. And by me learning to do this myself, I'm also modeling it to my children, right?
Yeah.
Because they're at a stage right now where they're experiencing big feelings for the first time. And I was never taught how to hold those feelings. When I was like having like anger or sadness or whatever, like it was shut down in me. Right. Because my parents didn't know any better, right? Like it was what was done to them. And so they didn't know how to hold space for me and my big feelings because they couldn't even do it for themselves. Right. And so I learned to just suppress it, shut it down. And that's what led to 15 years of deep addiction for me. Right. And that's something that I refuse to pass on to my children. And so, I always talk about my 5-year-old. His favorite emotion is rage. Like if he feels any sense of injustice, he's immediately angry, and I honor that in him. I try to, and I'm learning with him, right? So I'm learning how to co-regulate with him, and I'll tell him, I'm like, listen, it's okay for you to feel angry right now. I'm like, but here's the boundary for us. You can be angry, but it's not okay when you hurt somebody because you're angry. So
Yes.
here's some things that we can do to try to get that anger out, right? And so I will show him things, right? And then as I'm showing him, I'm learning too, and because I don't want them to like feel shame because they're feeling, rage or anger or sadness or upset or, like all of that kind of stuff. Like I want them to honor, like we're such a beautiful species, that have a myriad of beauty, and what makes us human is our emotions, all of them. And all of them are okay. They're all okay. They're all part of our humanness, our humanity. None of them deserve to be shut down or ignored or and grief and rage are one of the ones that I think as a collective we're seeing more and more right now, right? And it's just something that I if I can have like an impact, a positive impact in this way, to my own sliver of humanity, I'm more than honored to do that, and yeah, it's a gift for sure.
When it starts your new program, or you already started?
No, we start this coming weekend on Sunday, the 22nd, but it's an ongoing kind of like you can jump in anytime in the year. Yeah, the details and everything like that will be in the link that you'll share. But I am so excited because it's not about escaping the modern world that we're living in. We live in this world, right? It's really about learning to remember how to live inside of it without losing ourselves, without losing ourselves in the process. And instead actually leaning in more to coming home to ourselves, right? With that deep connection in all the directions. And that's really, what will heal me, what will heal like us as a collective in our community, all of that kind of stuff, right? And that's what Sovereign Seasons is about. So yeah.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Abby. I really appreciate this conversation that is wonderful and is so needed in
Mhm.
this moment.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you so
so
much.
much.
Yeah, thank you.